Billionaire CEO, offered her an internship, didn't know she was a spy.
Sir,
She did
you
not
shouldn't have
believe in
hired me.
fate. Fate was a luxury for women who could afford to close their eyes at night without wondering if the ceiling had eyes. For her, every handshake was a transaction, every smile a weapon, and every man who looked at her twice was either a target or a threat. But on the morning she walked into the towering glass and steel fortress of MK Holdings, she forgot every rule she had ever taught herself. And that was the first sign of the disaster to come. Before we go any further, you need to understand something. This story is not for the innocent. It is for those who have loved in the dark, betrayed in the name of survival, and still wonder if redemption tastes as sweet as revenge. So if you haven't already, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications because you do not want to miss what happens next. And when you are ready, like this video, share it with someone who understands that passion and danger are the same thing in different lighting. Now, let me take you somewhere cold, somewhere beautiful, somewhere utterly unforgiving. Seoul in winter is a city of sharp edges. The sky is a pale, bruised gray, and the wind cuts through wool and cashmere like it is searching for bone. But inside the penthouse office of Kang Joon-ho, the temperature never dropped below 68 degrees. It was a controlled environment, like everything else in his life. He was 34 years old, the youngest son of a chaebol dynasty that had built its empire on semiconductors, real estate, and the quiet destruction of smaller competitors. He had inherited his father's cruelty and his mother's silence. From his grandmother, he had learned one thing: never trust a woman who laughs too easily. And from the streets of Gangnam, where he had been sent to learn humility, and had instead emerged with a smile that promised everything and a heart that delivered nothing. She, on the other hand, had no family name worth protecting. Her father had been a mid-level intelligence officer who died in a car accident that was never investigated properly. Her mother had remarried a man who liked to remind her daughter that beauty was a debt that always came due. So by the time she turned 22, she had learned 3 languages, 2 martial arts, and the exact pressure point on a man's neck that would make him forget his own name for 30 seconds. Long enough to take what she needed, long enough to disappear. Her name was Yuna, but that was not her real name. Nothing about her was real except her desperation to survive. The internship offer arrived on a Tuesday. She was washing dishes in a cafe in Hongdae, watching the students laugh and the lovers argue when her handler sent a single text message. 3 words: "The Falcon is ready." The Falcon. That was what they called her in the files. A bird of prey trained to strike without warning, to fixate on a single target and not let go until the bones cracked. Her target was Kang Joon-ho. The mission was simple: infiltrate his company, gain his trust, and extract the encrypted hard drive hidden in his private safe. The hard drive contained evidence of a billion-dollar money laundering operation tied to a shadowy network that reached from Pyongyang to Panama. If she succeeded, she would finally earn her freedom. If she failed, she would disappear like her father. No body, no funeral, just a footnote in a classified report that no one would ever read. She accepted the mission before the coffee in her cup went cold. The interview was held on a Friday. She wore a cream-colored blouse that was 2 buttons too low and a skirt that was 3 inches too high. Not because she wanted to seduce him, because she wanted him to underestimate her. Men like Kang Joon-ho expected women to use their bodies as currency. So she gave them exactly what they expected, and then she gave them nothing at all. The panel of executives asked her about her education, her experience, her goals. She lied about all of it. But she lied beautifully, with tears in her eyes when she spoke about her dead father, with a trembling voice when she mentioned her dreams of stability, with a shy smile when she admitted she had never been to a company dinner before. They hired her on the spot. What she did not expect was him, not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the heir to a kingdom of steel and secrets. She expected cold. She expected arrogance. She expected a man who would look through her like she was glass. But Kang Joon-ho did not look through her. He looked at her. And that was the first mistake either of them made. He walked into the orientation room unannounced. The other interns nearly fainted. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than her rent for a year. His hair was dark and swept back, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and his eyes. His eyes were the color of whiskey in a dim room. Warm, dangerous, empty. He did not speak to the group. He walked directly to her desk, leaned down, and said something so quietly that no one else could hear. But since this is a narration and we do not do dialogue, let me tell you what he said without his voice. He told her that she was too beautiful to be an intern, that he did not believe in coincidences, and that he would be watching her very, very closely. She smiled. She thanked him. She looked him directly in the eyes and felt, for the first time in 7 years, something other than cold purpose. She felt heat, and heat was dangerous. Heat made you forget the mission. Heat made you forget the knife in your pocket and the poison in your ring. Heat made you forget that the man you were about to destroy might be the only man who had ever looked at you like you were a woman instead of a weapon. That night she sat in her tiny studio apartment and stared at the ceiling. The mission file was open on her laptop. Kang Junho's photograph stared back at her. She had memorized his schedule, his security codes, his preferred whiskey, his mother's maiden name, his father's mistress, his brother's gambling debts. She knew everything about him except one thing. Why did he look at her like that? Like she mattered. Like she was not disposable. She should have requested a reassignment. She should have told her handler that the target was too perceptive, that the risk was too high, that she needed more time. But she did none of those things. Because somewhere between the handshake and the elevator ride, she had made a decision that would unravel everything. She decided to stay. The first month passed like a fever dream. She arrived at 6:45 every morning before the cleaning staff, and she left after midnight, when the security guards had stopped paying attention. She learned the layout of the 42nd floor. She memorized the blind spots in the camera coverage. She befriended the executive assistant, a tired woman named Soo-jin who had worked for Kang Jun-ho for 12 years and had never once seen him smile. From Soo-jin, she learned that the CEO did not date, did not attend galas, did not accept dinner invitations from heiresses or actresses or anyone with a famous last name. He lived in a glass penthouse in Hanamdong, alone except for a housekeeper who came 3 times a week and never spoke a word. He had no pets, no hobbies, no lovers. He worked, he slept, and he worked again. To Yuna, this was not a red flag. This was a blueprint. A man with no attachments had no weaknesses, unless she could become his weakness. Her handler was impatient. The messages grew sharper, move faster, get closer. He is not a statue, make him notice you, but he had already noticed her. The problem was that he noticed her too much. Every morning he passed her desk on the way to his office. Every morning he paused for exactly 1 second, not long enough for anyone else to see, but long enough for her to feel the weight of his attention like a hand on her throat. She began to leave things for him, small things. A cup of black coffee on his desk before he arrived. A report reorganized in a way that saved him 10 minutes of reading. A sticky note on a file with a single checkmark, because she knew he hated clutter. She was playing a game she had been trained to win, but somewhere around the 3rd week, she stopped pretending to care about his preferences and actually started caring. She noticed that he drank his coffee at a specific temperature, not too hot, not too cold. She noticed that he rubbed his left temple when he had a migraine, which was often. She noticed that he never ate lunch, and that his hands trembled slightly in the afternoon from low blood sugar. So she started leaving a small bowl of almonds on his desk. Just almonds, nothing else. No note, no explanation. He did not thank her. He did not acknowledge her. But 3 days later she found a new chair at her desk, an ergonomic one worth more than her monthly salary. No note, no explanation. That was the moment she knew she was in trouble, because she smiled. Not the smile she had practiced in the mirror, the one that looked innocent but meant nothing. A real smile. The kind that hurt her cheeks. The kind she had not worn since her father was alive. And in the reflection of her computer screen, she saw a woman she did not recognize. A woman who was falling. The invitation came on a Friday night. The office was empty except for the two of them. He was in his corner office, the lights dimmed, a single lamp burning on his desk. She was packing her bag, pretending to leave when his assistant called her name, not over the phone, in person. Sujin stood in the doorway with an expression that Yuna had never seen before. Fear, not fear of her, fear for her. "He wants to see you," Sujin said, "in his office, now." The walk to his office was 23 steps. She counted them because counting kept her from thinking about what was about to happen. Her heart was beating too fast. Her palms were sweating. She had faced armed men in dark alleys. She had crossed borders with false papers and a gun taped to her thigh. She had looked into the eyes of killers and smiled. But none of that mattered now, because she was not walking toward a target. She was walking toward a man who made her forget she was a weapon. The door was open. He was standing by the window, his back to her, the city of Seoul spread out beneath him like a circuit board of light. He did not turn around when she entered. He did not speak. He waited. And that was the cruelest thing he could have done because the silence forced her to look at him. The breadth of his shoulders, the way his suit jacket hugged his waist, the vulnerability of his exposed neck, the pale skin above his collar. She could kill him right now. One move, one breath. One twist of her wrist, and the mission would be over. But she did not want to kill him. She wanted to touch him, and that was the moment she knew she had already lost. "Close the door," he said. No pleas, no courtesy, just the quiet authority of a man who had never been refused anything in his life. She closed the door. And then he turned around. His eyes were darker than she remembered. Not whiskey tonight, coffee, black and bitter and bottomless. He looked at her the way a storm looks at a ship, not with anger, with inevitability. He knew. He had to know. There was no other explanation for the way he was staring at her, like he could see through her skin, through her lies, through the false name and the false smile and the false tears she had cried in the interview. He knew she was not an intern. He knew she was not hungry for success or desperate for stability. He knew she was there for something else, something darker. But he did not confront her. He did not call security. He did not reach for the panic button under his desk. Instead, he walked toward her, slowly, deliberately, each step a question she could not answer, each step a promise she did not want to keep. When he was close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar and smoke and something underneath, something almost sweet, he stopped. And he said nothing. He just looked at her, and she looked back. And in that silence between a spy and her target, between a liar and a man who had been lied to his entire life, something shifted. Something cracked. Something that could never be repaired. She had one job, one mission, one chance at freedom. And in that moment, standing in the dark with Kang Junho, she realized she would rather be his prisoner than go free. Before you hear what happened next, I need you to understand that this story is not a fairy tale. It is a confession, and confessions are dangerous. So if you want to know whether she kissed him or killed him, whether she stole the hard drive or burned it, whether she chose her country or her heart, then you need to hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who loves the kind of love that destroys everything in its path. And subscribe to Midnight Romance, because the night is not over. It is only getting darker. The question I leave you with is this. When a woman who has never been loved meets a man who has never loved, and they see each other clearly for the first time, do they destroy each other, or do they destroy everyone else? Tell me in the comments, and stay with me, because what comes next will break you. He did not kiss her that night. That was the most surprising part. He stood close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his chest, close enough that if she tilted her chin up, her lips would have brushed his jaw. But he did not close the distance. Instead, he reached past her, his arm brushing her shoulder, and he locked the door. The sound of the bolt sliding into place was louder than it should have been. It echoed through the glass office like a gunshot. Then he walked away. He returned to his desk, sat down, and opened a drawer. From inside, he pulled out a file, a thick one, the kind that lawyers use for cases that never see the inside of a courtroom. He placed it on the desk between them and slid it toward her. She did not need to open it. She already knew what was inside. Her photographs, her aliases, her real name, the name of her dead father, the name of her handler, everything. "You have 3 minutes," he said, "to explain why I should not have you arrested." She did not run. She did not cry. She did not reach for the knife in her boot. She did the only thing she had left. She told him the truth, not all of it, but enough. She told him about her father, the intelligence officer who was killed because he refused to launder money for the same people Kang Jun-ho now answered to. She told him about the mission, the hard drive, the money that flowed from North Korea through shell companies into his father's bank accounts. She told him that she had been sent to destroy him, but that somewhere between the coffee and the almonds and the ergonomic chair, she had forgotten how. He listened without moving, without blinking, without breathing, it seemed. And when she finished, he leaned back in his chair and looked at her the way a king looks at a peasant who has just confessed to treason, not with anger, with curiosity. "You are either the best liar I have ever met," he said, "or the biggest fool." She did not answer, because both were true. He stood up. He walked to the window again, his back to her, and for a long moment the only sound in the room was the distant hum of the city below. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, softer, almost gentle. "My father is dying," he said. "Liver cancer. 6 months, maybe less. He does not know that I know about the accounts. He does not know that I have been tracing the money for 2 years. He thinks I am his loyal son, the one who will carry on the family legacy of blood and ash. But I am not loyal. I am waiting." He turned to face her. "I have the hard drive. I have had it for 18 months. I have been waiting for someone to come for it. Someone smart enough to find me, brave enough to face me, foolish enough to fall in love with me." Her blood turned to ice. "You knew," she whispered, "not a question, a statement. I knew the moment you walked into the orientation room, the way you looked at the cameras, the way you touched your earring when you were nervous, the way you smiled at Soo-jin like you were studying her instead of befriending her. You are not a spy, Yuna, or whatever your name is. You are a mirror, and I have been looking for a mirror my entire life." She should have run. The door was locked, but she could have broken the window. She could have jumped. The 42nd floor would have killed her instantly, and that would have been easier than what came next, because what came next was not a fight. What came next was a surrender. He walked toward her again. This time he did not stop. He placed his hands on either side of her face, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones, his palms warm against her cold skin. She closed her eyes. She waited for the kiss. But again it did not come. "I am not going to kiss you," he said. "Not until you ask me to. Not until you mean it. Because when I kiss you, I want you to forget every mission, every handler, every lie you have ever told. I want you to forget your name. I want you to remember only mine." He let her go. He unlocked the door. He returned to his desk and picked up a pen as if the last 10 minutes had never happened. "You start tomorrow at 9. Same desk, same chair. But now you work for me, not your handler, not your country, me. And in exchange, I will give you something your father never had. I will give you the truth." She walked out of his office in a daze. The elevator ride down was a blur. The streets of Seoul were a smear of neon and rain. She did not remember walking home. She did not remember unlocking her door. But she remembered collapsing onto her bed and staring at the ceiling, her hand pressed against her chest, feeling her heart pound like a caged animal. She had been trained to resist interrogation. She had been trained to resist torture. She had been trained to resist seduction, manipulation, and every form of psychological warfare known to man. But no one had trained her to resist a man who looked at her like she was already his. No one had trained her to resist kindness wrapped in cruelty. No one had trained her to resist the truth. The next morning she arrived at 9, not 6:45, not early enough to plant listening devices or photograph documents. 9, like a normal employee, like a woman who had nothing to hide. He was waiting for her, standing by her desk, holding a cup of coffee made exactly the way she liked it, not too hot, not too cold. She took the cup, their fingers brushed, and for the first time in her life she did not pull away. That was the beginning, not of the mission, not of the spy game, but of something far more dangerous, a relationship built on lies that were slowly becoming truths, a partnership between two people who had spent their entire lives preparing for war and had no idea how to survive peace. Over the next 3 weeks, he taught her things, not about business, about himself. He took her to a small noodle shop in a back alley of Myeongdong, a place his mother had taken him before she died. He told her about the night his father came home drunk and broke his mother's arm. He told her about the grandmother who raised him after that, the one who taught him that money was a weapon and silence was armor. He told her about the brother who tried to kill him when he was 28, the one who was now living in exile in Switzerland, funded by an allowance that Jun-ho paid every month out of guilt. She listened. She did not record. She did not take notes. She just listened, and somewhere between the noodles and the confession, she realized she was not gathering intelligence anymore. She was gathering him, piece by broken piece. And he was gathering her too. He asked her about her father, not the cover story, the real one. The man who taught her to tie her shoes and then taught her to tie a knot that could hold 200 pounds. The man who smiled when he was scared and cried when he was alone. The man who died with a secret on his lips, a secret she had spent 10 years trying to uncover. Jun-ho did not offer to find the secret for her. He offered something better. He offered to sit with her in the not knowing. He offered to hold her hand while she grieved. She had never grieved, not really. She had buried her father, attended the funeral, accepted the condolences, and then buried everything else under layers of training and discipline and cold, hard purpose. But sitting next to Kang Jun-ho in the back of his black Mercedes, watching the rain streak down the windows, she felt the grief rise like floodwater. And for the first time, she let it. She cried, not the pretty tears she had practiced in the mirror, ugly tears, messy tears, the kind that left her nose running and her face swollen and her voice cracked like old plaster. He did not tell her to stop. He did not hand her a tissue. He simply pulled her against his chest and held her, one hand on her back tracing slow circles, the other hand buried in her hair, holding her like she was something precious, something irreplaceable. And in that moment she made a decision, not with her head, with her heart, a heart she had been told she did not have, a heart she had been trained to ignore, a heart that was now beating in rhythm with his. She decided to tell him everything. Not the sanitized version she had given him in his office, the real version, the ugly version, the version that made her a monster. She told him about the 3 men she had killed. One in Istanbul, a smuggler who had seen her face. One in Bangkok, a bodyguard who had grabbed her arm. One in Seoul, a trader who had been her mentor and had tried to sell her to the highest bidder. She told him about the blood on her hands and the nightmares that came with it. She told him about the nights she woke up screaming, reaching for a gun that was no longer there. She told him about the hollow space inside her chest where her soul used to be. He listened. He did not flinch. He did not judge. He simply nodded as if she had told him something he already knew. "I have killed too," he said. "Not with my hands, with my signature, with my silence, with my money. There are men in prison because of me. Men who will never see their children again. Men who did nothing wrong except refuse to bow. We are the same, you and I, we are both monsters. The question is not whether we deserve love. The question is whether we are brave enough to take it." That night he drove her to his penthouse, not the office, the home, the glass tower in Hanamdong where he lived alone, surrounded by art he did not look at and furniture he did not sit on. The elevator ride was silent. The door opened onto a space so vast and so cold that it felt like a mausoleum. White marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a single photograph on the mantelpiece. His mother, the one with the broken arm. He led her to the bedroom, not to seduce her, to show her something. On the nightstand next to a lamp that had never been turned off was a small black box. He opened it. Inside was a key, not a safe deposit key, not a car key. A key to a small house in the countryside, a house he had bought 5 years ago and never visited. A house with a garden and a porch swing and no security cameras. "This is where I go when I want to remember that I am human," he said. "I have never taken anyone there, but I want to take you, tomorrow, if you will come." She looked at the key. Then she looked at him. The great Kang Joon-ho, billionaire CEO, heir to a dynasty of blood and ash, standing in front of her with his heart in his hands like a child offering a broken toy. He was not afraid of her. He was afraid of himself. Afraid that he would ruin her the way his father had ruined his mother. Afraid that love was just another weapon, and he did not know how to hold it without cutting himself. She took the key. She closed the box, and she did something she had never done before. She kissed him. Not because he asked. Not because the mission required it. Not because she wanted something from him. She kissed him because she could not bear the distance between them any longer. She kissed him because his lips looked soft and his eyes looked lost, and she wanted to be the one who found him. She kissed him because for the first time in her life, she wanted to be seen. And he was the only one who had ever looked. The kiss lasted a long time, long enough for her to forget her name, long enough for him to forget his, long enough for the city outside to dim its lights and the rain to stop and the world to hold its breath. When they finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers, and she felt his breath warm on her lips. "I love you," he said. 3 words, simple, devastating. She had heard them before from marks who thought they could buy her with romance, from handlers who thought they could control her with affection, from her mother who had said them while packing her bags to leave. But she had never believed them, until now. She did not say it back, not because she did not mean it, because she was afraid that once she said it, she would never be able to take it back. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice whispered a warning she could not ignore. Her handler was still out there. The mission was still active. The hard drive was still in his safe. And her country did not forgive defectors. They went to the countryside the next day. The house was smaller than she expected, older than she expected, more beautiful than she expected. The porch swing creaked. The garden was overgrown with wildflowers. There were no neighbors for miles, just fields and sky and the kind of silence that feels like a prayer. He made her breakfast, eggs and rice and kimchi the way his mother used to make it. He burned the eggs, he laughed. She had never heard him laugh before. It was a rusty sound like a door opening after years of disuse. She laughed too. And then she cried again because she realized she had never laughed with anyone. Not really. Not like this. They spent the day walking through the fields, holding hands, saying nothing. They spent the night on the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars appear one by one. And when he fell asleep with his head in her lap, she looked down at his face and saw something she had never seen on any target, any mark, any man. Peace. She could kill him right now. One move, one breath. The knife in her boot was still there, the training was still there, the mission was still there, but the will was gone. She had been sent to destroy him, and instead he had destroyed her, not with violence, with tenderness, with burned eggs and a porch swing and 3 words she had never believed until now. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. "I love you too," she whispered. He did not hear her. He was already dreaming. But somewhere in the dark, in the space between sleep and waking, he smiled. The next morning her phone rang. Not her personal phone, the burner. The one her handler had given her. The one she had promised to destroy. The one she had hidden in the lining of her coat, because even in love she could not quite let go of survival. She looked at the screen. One word, Eagle. Her handler. She stepped off the porch, walked into the field and answered. "The hard drive," her handler said. No greeting, no courtesy, just the cold voice of a man who had never loved anything in his life. "We know you have access. We know you are close to him. You have 48 hours to deliver. If you do not, we will deliver something else. A photograph, the one of you in his bed. We will send it to every newspaper in Seoul. His father will see it. His board will see it. His enemies will see it. And they will all know that Kang Joon-ho has been sleeping with a spy." She closed her eyes. The field swayed around her. The wildflowers nodded in the breeze, indifferent to her destruction. "He knows," she said. "He has always known." There was a pause, the first crack in her handler's armor. "Then you have 48 hours to disappear, both of you, or we will make you disappear separately." The line went dead. She stood in the field for a long time. The sun rose higher. The birds sang. The world continued spinning, indifferent to the war inside her chest. She had two choices: betray the man she loved and earn her freedom, or betray her country and die with him. But there was a third choice, one she had not considered until this moment. She could fight back, not with a knife, not with a gun, with the truth. The hard drive in his safe contained evidence not just against his father but against her handler, against the entire network, against the men who had killed her father and turned her into a weapon. If she released it, she would destroy them all, but she would also destroy Junho, his company, his legacy, his future. Unless he wanted to be destroyed. She walked back to the porch. He was awake now, sitting on the swing, watching her with those whiskey-colored eyes. He did not ask who called. He did not ask what they said. He simply held out his hand. "Come here," he said. She went. She sat beside him. She laid her head on his shoulder, and she told him everything. Again. But this time she did not leave anything out. Not the ultimatum, not the photograph, not the 48 hours, not the third choice. When she finished, he was silent for a long time. Then he stood up, walked into the house, and returned with the hard drive. Small, black, unremarkable, the thing that had started everything, the thing that would end everything. "Burn it," he said. She stared at him. "Burn it and we run, together. There is a plane waiting at a private airstrip 30 kilometers from here. It has been waiting for 2 years. I knew someone would come for me eventually. I just did not know it would be you." "If I burn it," she said, "the evidence is gone. My father died for nothing. I became a monster for nothing." He knelt in front of her, took her face in his hands, and looked at her with an intensity that made her forget to breathe. "Your father did not die for a hard drive. He died for you so that you could live, and you have not become a monster. You have become a woman who is brave enough to love. That is not nothing. That is everything." She looked at the hard drive, then she looked at him, and she made her choice. She burned it. The flames were small at first, then larger. The plastic curled and blackened. The data inside melted into nothing. 10 years of secrets, 10 years of pain, 10 years of being a weapon instead of a woman. Gone, in the time it takes to say goodbye. He took her hand. They walked to the car. They drove to the airstrip. The plane was small, white, waiting on the tarmac like a promise. She did not ask where they were going. She did not care. Anywhere he was home. But as the plane lifted into the sky and Seoul shrank beneath them, she felt something cold settle in her chest. Her handler was not a man who accepted failure. The photograph still existed. The network still existed. And somewhere in the shadows, a new mission was already being written. One that did not end with a hard drive. One that ended with her blood. She looked at Junho. He was watching the clouds, his hand warm in hers. He did not see the danger coming, but she did. She had been trained to see it, and she knew with a certainty that turned her stomach to stone that this was not an ending. This was the beginning of something far darker. The plane flew on, the sun set, and somewhere below in the streets of Seoul a phone rang. A man answered, and a new order was given. Find her, find him, and make sure neither of them ever comes home. The plane landed in a country she had never heard of, somewhere in Southeast Asia, where the air was thick with humidity and the streets smelled of jasmine and diesel. He had bought a house there years ago, under a false name, with money that did not exist on any ledger. A white villa hidden behind high walls, with a courtyard full of bougainvillea and a pool that reflected the sun like shattered glass. It was beautiful. It was a cage. For the first 3 months they lived in a haze of stolen time. They woke up late, made love in the afternoons, ate dinner by candlelight. He taught her to cook. She taught him to laugh. They planted a garden together, tomatoes and basil and mint, and they watched it grow like something real, something permanent. But at night, when the heat lifted and the stars came out, she lay awake and listened. Not to him, to the silence. The silence was too perfect, too complete. It was the silence of a tomb, not a sanctuary. She had been a spy for too long to believe in happy endings. Happy endings were for women who had never held a gun. Happy endings were for couples who had never betrayed each other. She and Junho had been built on lies, and even now, with the hard drive burned and the mission abandoned, the lies lingered like smoke in a closed room. He loved her. She loved him. But love was not enough to erase what she had done, what she was. The nightmare started in the 4th month. She dreamed of her father, not the way he was at the end, hollow-eyed and haunted. The way he was when she was 7, lifting her onto his shoulders at the amusement park, buying her cotton candy, telling her she could be anything she wanted to be. In the dream, he always turned to her at the end and said the same thing. "You were supposed to be better than me." And then he walked into the darkness and left her alone. She woke up screaming. Junho held her, he always held her, but his hands felt different now. Less certain. He was starting to see her the way she saw herself, not as a woman, as a weapon that had misfired. The first sign of real trouble came in the 5th month. She was at the market buying fish and vegetables when she saw a man she did not recognize. He was standing by a stall selling mangoes, reading a newspaper, nothing unusual, except that he was wearing sunglasses indoors, except that his left hand was bandaged in a way that looked intentional, except that when she walked past him, he whispered a single word: "Falcon." Her blood turned to ice. She did not stop. She did not look back. She walked home with the fish and the vegetables, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would break her ribs. She did not tell Junho. She should have told him, but she was afraid, not of the man at the market, of what would happen when Junho realized that running away had not saved them, that her past was not a door she could close, that it was a shadow that would follow her until she died. The second sign came a week later. A package arrived at the villa, no return address, no postmark, just a plain brown box tied with string. Junho opened it while she was in the shower. When she came out, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, his face pale, the box open on his lap. Inside was a photograph, not of her handler. But the handler was not the focus of the image. The focus was the man standing next to him, a man she had never seen before. A man with cold eyes and a scar running from his temple to his jaw. A man who looked exactly like Kang Junho. "My brother," Junho said. His voice was flat. Empty, the voice of a man who had just realized he had been a fool. "He is not in Switzerland. He has been working with your handler. They are together. They have always been together." She dropped to her knees in front of him. She took his hands. They were cold, so cold. "I did not know," she said. "I swear to you, I did not know." He looked at her, really looked at her. The way he had looked at her in his office that first night, when he had the file open on his desk and the truth between them like a loaded gun. "I know," he said. "That is what makes it worse. If you had known, I could hate you, but you did not know. You were just another piece on their board, and so was I." He pulled her into his arms. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the heat of the afternoon, the photograph lying on the bed between them like a third presence, a witness to their undoing. That night they made a plan, not to run again, to fight. Junho still had connections, men who owed him favors, men who would kill for the right price, and she still had skills, the kind of skills that could not be forgotten no matter how many gardens she planted. Together they would find his brother, they would find her handler, and they would end this, not with a hard drive, with blood. She should have felt relief. Finally, action. Finally, a mission she could understand. But all she felt was a deep, cold dread, because she knew something Junho did not. She knew that in the world of spies and billionaires there was no such thing as victory. There was only survival, and survival had a cost she was no longer willing to pay. The third sign came the next morning. She woke up alone. Junho was standing by the window, his phone in his hand, his back to her. He did not turn around when she called his name. He did not move at all. She got out of bed, walked to him, and looked at the screen. It was a text message. No sender, just 3 words. She was his. She did not understand at first. She read the words again. She was his, whose, and then it hit her, her father, the handler, the mission, the photograph of her handler standing next to Junho's brother. It was not a coincidence. It was a conspiracy that had been decades in the making. Her father had not been killed because he refused to launder money. He had been killed because he discovered the truth about the network, the truth about the money, the truth about the woman who had recruited his daughter. The handler was not just her boss. He was the man who had ordered her father's death, and Junho's brother had been there, had probably pulled the trigger. She looked at Junho. His face was a mask, the same mask he had worn in Seoul in the glass tower when he was still a king and she was still a spy. But behind the mask she saw something she had never seen before. Grief. Not the sharp grief of loss. The slow, suffocating grief of realizing that your entire life has been a lie. He used us, Junho said, both of us. Your father, my brother, they have been playing us since the beginning, the mission, the internship, the hard drive. None of it was real. It was all a game, and we were the pieces. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to tell him he was wrong, but she could not, because deep down she had always known. No one becomes a spy by accident. No one is recruited because they are smart and brave and desperate. They are recruited because they are broken, because broken people are easy to control. Her father had been broken, and then she had been broken, and now Junho. The 3 of them bound together by the same men, the same lies, the same blood. She did not cry. She was done crying. Instead, she walked to the closet, pulled out a bag, and began to pack. Not clothes, weapons, a knife, a gun, a vial of poison she had stolen from her handler years ago, hidden in the lining of her coat, waiting for a moment like this. "What are you doing?" Junho asked. "What I was trained to do." No, he crossed the room and grabbed her wrists. His grip was hard, desperate. No more missions, no more killing. That is what they want. They want us to become monsters again. They want us to prove that we are no different from them. "Then what do you want to do?" she screamed. "Sit here and wait for them to come, plant tomatoes and pretend we are safe. There is no safe, Junho. There is only the fight, and I have been fighting my entire life. I do not know how to stop." He let go of her wrists. He stepped back, and for the first time since she had met him, he looked afraid, not of his brother, not of her handler, of her. "If you leave," he said, "do not come back." She stared at him. The bag was in her hand. The weapons were inside. The door was behind her. The road was ahead. And somewhere out there in the shadows of the world, her father's killers were waiting, waiting for her to come, waiting to finish what they had started. She had a choice, the same choice she had always had: become the weapon or become the woman. She dropped the bag. She walked to him. She placed her hands on his chest, over his heart, and felt it beating, fast, like a caged bird. "I am not leaving," she said, "but I am not staying here either. We fight, together, not as spies, not as billionaires, as the people we should have been all along, the people they tried to destroy." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, the fear was gone. In its place was something harder, something colder, something that looked like hope. "Then we fight." They did not sleep that night. They sat on the floor of the villa, surrounded by maps and phones and weapons, and they planned. Not revenge, justice. There was a difference, she told him. Revenge was for the living. Justice was for the dead, and her father deserved justice. So did his mother. So did everyone else who had been sacrificed on the altar of the Kang family fortune. They would not kill his brother. They would expose him. They would not kill her handler. They would imprison him, and they would not run. They would walk into the lion's den with their heads held high and their hands empty, and they would tell the truth. The whole truth, the ugly truth, the truth that would destroy them both. It took 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks of phone calls to journalists who owed Junho favors. 3 weeks of encrypted messages to intelligence officers who had once been her enemies. 3 weeks of waiting, watching, pretending to be nothing more than two people in love in a white villa with a garden full of tomatoes. And then the day came. They flew back to Seoul, not in a private plane, in economy like normal people. She wore a gray sweater and no makeup. He wore a jacket he had bought at a street market. They looked like a couple returning from vacation. No one looked at them twice. The press conference was held at the MK Holdings headquarters, the same glass tower where she had first seen him, the same 42nd floor where he had locked the door and told her the truth. But this time, the truth was not for them. It was for the world. They walked in together, hand in hand. The cameras flashed, the reporters shouted, and Jun-ho stepped up to the podium. He did not have a speech prepared. He did not have notes. He had only the truth. He told them everything: the money laundering, the network, his father's crimes, his brother's crimes, her handler's crimes, the hard drive that no longer existed, the evidence that existed only in their memories. He told them about the spy who had been sent to destroy him and the love that had saved them both. He told them about the house in the countryside and the burned eggs and the porch swing where he had learned to smile again. The room was silent when he finished, and then the questions came, a flood of them, but he did not answer. He simply stepped down from the podium, took her hand, and walked out. They were arrested at the airport, not because they had done anything wrong, because the men they had exposed still had power, still had money, still had friends in high places. The charges were fabricated: industrial espionage, conspiracy, treason, the kind of charges that carried life sentences. She did not fight when they put the handcuffs on her. She did not cry when they put her in the police car. She simply looked at Jun-ho through the window of his own car and she smiled, because she knew something they did not. The journalists had recorded everything. The evidence had been uploaded to a dozen servers around the world. The truth was out. And the truth, no matter how many people were arrested, could not be uncaged. They were held in separate cells, for days, for weeks. She did not see him. She did not hear his voice. But every night she touched the wall between them and imagined him doing the same. Two hands separated by concrete, reaching for each other in the dark. The trial was a circus. The media called it the romance of the century, the scandal of the decade, the fall of the House of Kang. Witness after witness took the stand. Lies were told, truths were uncovered, and in the end the verdict came. Not guilty. Both of them. The judge ruled that they had acted in the public interest, that the evidence they had uncovered was too important to ignore, that they were not criminals. They were whistleblowers, heroes, the kind of people who deserved statues, not sentences. She walked out of the courthouse into a sea of cameras. Jun-ho was waiting for her at the bottom of the steps. He was wearing a new suit, gray, simple. He looked older than she remembered, thinner, but his eyes were the same, whiskey in a dim room. He held out his hand. "Come home," he said. She took his hand. They did not go back to the white villa. They did not go back to the penthouse in Hanam-dong. They went back to the small house in the countryside, the one with the porch swing and the overgrown garden, the one where he had burned the eggs and she had learned to laugh. They still live there, or so the rumors say. No one knows for sure. They disappeared after the trial, vanished into the kind of obscurity that only the very rich or the very clever can achieve. Some say they moved to New Zealand. Some say they are living on a boat in the Mediterranean. Some say they are dead. But every now and then, a tourist driving through the Korean countryside will see a small house with a garden full of tomatoes, and on the porch, two figures, a man and a woman, sitting on a swing, holding hands, watching the sun set. They never speak to anyone. They never give interviews. They never explain what happened in the years between the glass tower and the garden. But sometimes, if you listen closely, you can hear them laughing. Not the loud laughter of joy. The quiet laughter of two people who have seen the worst the world has to offer and chosen each other anyway. This is the end of their story, or maybe it is not, because stories like this do not end. They echo, they haunt. They remind us that love is not for the innocent. Love is for the survivors, the ones who have blood on their hands and secrets in their hearts and still somehow find a reason to hold on. Before you go, I need you to do something. Hit that like button. Not for me, for the two people in the garden, for everyone who has ever been told they are too broken to love. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that redemption is possible, even for monsters. And subscribe to Midnight Romance because the night is endless and the stories are infinite. The final question is this: if love is the most beautiful prison and freedom is the loneliest cell, which would you choose? Tell me in the comments, and until next time, sleep well or don't. The dark is listening.